So, as folks may be aware, the foundation was founded by Emil and Natasha 8 years ago, right? And what has our focus always really been, and what have our priorities been? So, ideally, we wanted to help support fundamental research into first Cat6a, then Cat6b as well, right? And it's always been kind of research focused. We got a lot of feedback early on. Let's also support families directly, right? And so we've developed some of those programs for the empowered grants for communication and assistive devices, therapies, what have you, right? So the over the first couple years of the foundation, we diversified a little bit of what we were doing, some research, some direct family assistance, et cetera, and just the core construction of our processes as the foundation, communication, fundraising, the registry itself, hosting these annual conferences. All the while, we've been fundraising every year with all of your support, your direct donations, your outreach to friends and family, etc. So we finally hit a point this year with the foundation where we felt we had raised sufficient funding and accumulated enough funding that we could actually put out through the foundation itself an RFP, a request for proposals to the broader research community. Historically, we have again funded some studies directly from the foundation, but typically we had received from researchers almost unsolicited proposals to us saying, hey, I've got this great idea, can you fund it? We would cobble together the funds, fund that one study. That has been working. However, we finally felt like we had matured as an organization. We had raised sufficient funding that we could now solicit openly to the research community, hey, please send us your proposals for work you would like to do and you think would be most effective. So that was great. And that couldn't have happened again without all of your support. So we released an RFP at the end of last calendar year, and we got 11 different proposals back in by our submission deadline at the end of February. And out of those 11 proposals, based on, again, marrying evaluation of the proposals together with our foundation's budget, we've concluded the foundation itself can support 7 of those, the 7 what we felt were the most valuable proposed studies that we received. So thanks also to the science committee within our foundation that did a lot of work receiving, evaluating the proposals, and then working with our board to make the determinations of the proposals we'd support. So where we're at in the process right now is, again, we've made those decisions, we've communicated back out to the researchers who proposed, and now we're just in the kind of administrative phase of getting the funding and the actual contracts with those researchers executed so they can then go and conduct that work. Some of the studies proposed are 1 year, some are 2 years, some are 3 year. So it's going to be important while we feel like we had sufficient funding in the foundation to launch those studies. There is an expectation, right, that we're going to need out year funding to be able to support the out years of those projects. So again, puts key emphasis on what you'll hear from Amy next about our fundraising initiatives within the foundation. So thank you in advance for that. In terms of how we selected the studies that we wanted to support, again, we had a few criteria that guided us. One, we wanted to make sure both Cat6a and Cat6b disorders were represented and studied. We didn't want to just go one or the other, what have you. So some of the studies are just looking at one or the other, but then there's some studies that effectively are looking at either or both disorders as well. So that's really nice. And we had no idea what we were going to get back in. Maybe we would get one proposal, maybe we'd get 20. But we did find we had a nice representation of approaches, Cat6a, Cat6b, et cetera. So we felt like we had an ability to select the ones we felt were most aligned with the near-term priorities. Some, again, you've seen since the 8 years our foundation's been in existence, right? Like we started with nothing. Val's first paper just characterizing the Cat6a disorder. we had to do the most fundamental research initially just to even characterize the disorder itself. And now what we're seeing, we're kind of at that tipping point now where we're going from we still have to do ongoing fundamental level research at the molecular level, but now you're seeing our research community propose therapies or testing some compounds to be upregulating or downregulating the expressions of the gene, right? So we're at I feel like we're at this like tipping point now where we're getting into where we've got enough funding, we're supporting projects, we're starting to look at some sort of therapeutic avenues, we're seeing different approaches proposed by the different researchers you're hearing today. So it's very exciting. Interestingly, so 4 out of the 7 selected projects, 4 of the researchers out of those 7 are here today, have presented. They're all familiar to us, so that's very exciting. It will be a stipulation when we fund those 7 projects that they will be expected to attend the conference every year to present the progress of the work that we're supporting, and that their expenses will be supported by the foundation to make sure they can attend. So with that, let me Emil, if I hit, you think next slide should do it. Okay. Sorry, this is just a kind of an automated thing. So we'll move through the 7 real quick. I'm not going to voice track over them, and we're not going to go into much detail on them, but we'll put out like more public facing information about the projects once we get the contracts executed, and we'll post all that on our website. Okay. So thank you again to everybody again for all your work over the years that have enabled us to get to this point. Um, Again, we'll post more information on our website about the various different projects that are supported. And thank you again for, as it may be necessary for sample contribution or use of existing samples that have already been collected. Thanks again for your participation in that way. Now let me bring up Amy Wrightson for description of our various fundraising initiatives. And again, like I hope I've impressed upon everybody that what Amy's going to talk about is actually the driver and what allows all of this to happen. So again, thank you